He married into music royalty. He walked away from the biggest band on earth to stay loyal to his wife's family, and for over a decade, he kept a second family completely hidden from the public and from his own wife. Jermaine Jackson built his image on loyalty, devoted husband, family man, the steady brother in a family known for chaos. But when you actually follow the paper trail, the memoirs, the court records, the magazine interviews given at the time, not decades later, a very different story starts to take shape. One built on divided loyalty, a secret decade, and a rumor that has followed him for over 40 years. This is what actually happened. Stay to the end, because the sources might surprise you. It starts in Detroit, at Motown Records, in the late 1960s. A teenage Jermaine Jackson, one-fifth of a rising family group called the Jackson 5, meets a girl named Hazel Gordy. She isn't just any Motown employee's daughter. She's the daughter of Berry Gordy himself, the man who built the label from nothing into an empire. According to Jet Magazine's own December 1973 interview with the couple, they'd actually known each other for roughly 5 years before anything romantic developed. Hazel described Jermaine as quiet, almost unremarkable in those early days. There was no spark yet, just two kids orbiting the same industry. Hold on to that detail, because what looked like nothing at first would eventually become one of the most consequential relationships in Motown history. By the end of 1973, both barely out of their teens, they decided they were ready for forever. On December 15, 1973, Jermaine and Hazel married in a lavish ceremony at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Ebony Magazine's coverage at the time described an event that rivaled a royal wedding, hundreds of guests, elaborate, and a price tag that made headlines on its own. It wasn't just a marriage. It was a merger. The Gordy dynasty and the Jackson dynasty, joined by two teenagers who believed they'd figured out forever before they'd even figured out who they were. For a while, it worked. Hazel put her own ambitions. She'd been studying interior design on hold to help manage Jermaine's growing solo career. They started a family. On the surface, this looked like the fairy tale ending nobody in the music industry actually gets. But underneath, a fault line was already forming, and it had nothing to do with another woman not yet. In 1976, Jermaine's father, Joe Jackson, made a decision that would test his son's marriage in a way nobody saw coming. Frustrated with what he believed were Motown's limits on the Jackson 5's creative freedom, Joe decided to move the entire group to Epic Records. Every brother went, except one. Jermaine stayed behind, loyal to Motown, and by extension, loyal to his wife's family. According to Ebony's reporting at the time, the backlash was immediate and brutal. Fans called it a betrayal. Critics predicted his solo career would collapse without the Jackson 5 name attached to it. And Joe Jackson, according to that same reporting, did not take his son's decision well. Jermaine later said the choice was never about picking a side. It was simply a decision between two record labels. But once the headlines framed him as the brother who stayed behind, that label stuck to him for years. Through it all, Hazel never wavered. She defended him publicly while the industry questioned his loyalty. She helped rebuild what many assumed was a dying solo career. On paper, the marriage looked stronger than it had ever been. But paper doesn't tell the whole story. And by the mid-1980s, a name would start attaching itself to Jermaine's one that still generates headlines to this day. Whitney Houston. The two met professionally while Jermaine was already an established star, and Whitney was just beginning her recording career. They collaborated in the studio, and years later, in his own 2011 memoir, You Are Not Alone, Jermaine admitted something significant. There had been a real, mutual attraction between them. According to his own account, he confided in his younger brother Michael about it, and Michael urged him to do the right thing and stay committed to Hazel. Jermaine wrote that he ultimately chose to walk away, telling Whitney to wait, speaking only of someday and maybe before they went their separate ways. That's the part Jermaine confirmed himself, in his own words, in print. What came after his account is far murkier. Following Whitney Houston's death in 2012, tabloid reports, citing unnamed sources, claimed the two had actually carried on a hidden, year-long affair throughout the 1980s, and some pointed to Whitney's hit song, Saving All My Love for You, about loving a man who was already taken, as evidence. It's a compelling theory. It is also, to this day, unconfirmed by anyone with direct knowledge of the relationship. What Jermaine put in writing was an attraction he says he chose not to act on. Nothing more has ever been independently verified. But while the Whitney Houston story stayed rumor, another relationship in Jermaine's life did not. Her name was Margaret Maldonado. According to Maldonado's own published memoir, the two crossed paths in January 1986 at a restaurant in West Hollywood, just months after she'd completed treatment for addiction. What began as a chance meeting turned into a relationship that moved fast. By the spring of that same year, she was pregnant. Here's where the timeline gets difficult to look away from. According to Maldonado's account, Hazel was pregnant with the couple's third child during that exact same window. Jermaine, according to her memoir, continued splitting his time between both households. For years, a secret double life, hiding in plain sight. Their son, Jarmaine, was born later that year. A second son followed in 1989. The relationship with Maldonado lasted until 1993, 7 years, without ever becoming a marriage. Hazel eventually learned the full truth. In October 1987, after nearly 15 years of marriage, she filed for divorce. The split was finalized in 1988, and Hazel took custody of their 3 children. What happened next is one of the stranger footnotes in this entire story. According to Jet Magazine's 1992 reporting, Hazel and Margaret, 2 women who by any conventional account should have been at war, instead developed a civil, even cooperative relationship centered on their children. Both women contributed personal photographs and memories to a televised Jackson family miniseries that same year. Jermaine, meanwhile, moved forward. He married twice more in the years that followed. Hazel never remarried. So, what does Jermaine Jackson's actual love life reveal once you strip away the assumptions and stick only to what's documented? Not a single scandal. A pattern. A man caught again and again between competing loyalties to Motown and to his father's ambitions, to the wife he married at 19, and a feeling he says he chose to walk away from, to the family the public saw, and the one he kept hidden for the better part of a decade. The image was devoted husband and family man. The paper trail tells a story with a lot more competing chapter than that. I hope you liked the video. Go ahead and click on the ones showing on the screen to keep enjoying on Who Are the Jacksons, really.